introduce the gentlemen who are joining us for our discussion this morning. My name is Simba Kiage, and this is the Morning Drift. So a couple of things are going on in the country other than the fact that we are deeply into the El Nino period in the country. There are other things that are going on in the economy. One, Margaret Nyakango is speaking. The gentlemen who are joining us in the building today. I'll tell you what was well interesting. Maybe you can help us understand, isn't it? Number 3. You see those talks at the Bomas of Kenya? If you've been counting again, please, I urge you to keep on counting. They have again less than 30 days to give us their feedback. But they're not going okay. I'll be telling you exactly what that is. For the sake of our introduction,
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
RUTO. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na Njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv every Sunday. Unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni Ukulima ni Mali.
Karibu mtazamaji kwenye kipindi cha jamii na itikadi.
Kaini kitako tuna mengi.
Mapenzi yanapoanza watu huitana bebi na majina mengine matamu, lakini baadaye penzi linapogeuka na kuwa shubiri,
mtu anafikia kwenda kumtafuta mke mwingine.
Itakuwaje?
Yule wa kwake nyumbani labda hajamridhisha.
Ni sawa ama vipi Maliki?
Dadangu, wanaume ni kama maembe.
Huyu ni mwanamume atakuja abadiliki.
Mwanaume mwenye wanawake wengi hata katika uchumba, kwenye ndoa ataendelea. Mtu na tabia yake hawachi. Ile umbo la kike likishaanza, kila kitu kishaanza kuwa mahali pake.
Ningependa kukuona.
Sijaenda mahali ambapo mimi nilisikia mtu ati huyu alikuwa shujaa, alikufa katika mstari wa mbele wa ndoa. Sijawahi sikia mimi.
And the straight answer, Honorable Speaker, whether we like it or not, whether there are taxes loaded onto some of the products that we are dealing with, like fuel, if the global oil prices continue to rise on account of the war in the Arab world, in the Middle East, or in Ukraine and Russia, Honorable Speaker, until and unless we deal with those fundamentals, we can only be lying to each other and lying to our people.
The introduction is done, and I'm sorry it has taken that long. Good. So, in the building, I do have a gentleman who I do not know whether he's going to win the fire that is going to come from the other side of the studio, and I want to start with him. Joe, how are you doing, sir? How are you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Silas. How are you doing, man? Happy to have you around. Amazing. Callistus, how are you doing, man? Thank you. Here's the thing. I want us to give John this time to introduce us to exactly what is going on in this particular government. I like the way he speaks. Every time I speak to him, it comes from a super perspective. But you see, Kenyans are saying the things that we are hearing from the president and from the defenders of the government right now, they're not super. They're not speaking a language the majority of Kenyans will want to hear. Let's first start with the Hustler Fund and narrative. Is it a PR blunder, John, that the president is getting told, go in and say there's a man by the name Carissa, who's already who's already borrowed 714,000 outside on the basis of the Hustler Fund? Was it wrong for him to do that? Because they're questioning him. They're saying, no, it's not possible.
Morning to our viewers. When you find yourself in government, sometimes this is now sort of the real things happening.
Yes.
And the Hustler Fund has been around. I'm not government spokesman, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm speaking on behalf of the government. But the problem is, as a scientist, as a social scientist, I follow the evidence, or I follow facts.
Yes.
And unfortunately, in this case, we don't have all the facts. But if you were to assume that we go with assuming that Carissa is eligible for the highest allocation, which is 50,000. How many times does 50,000 go into 714,000? About 14 times. Hustler Fund has been around for how many months? About 10, 11?
Yes.
So then he's assuming that because we don't have all the facts.
But
I don't.
John, you do have the facts, though.
We don't have the facts.
John, hold on. You don't have the facts.
We've been told that Karisa has been able to access 714,000.
That's fine.
Over the last 10 months.
But we do know how the Hustler Fund narrative works, isn't it? Fund works, isn't it?
Yes, it works like all the other funds.
Does it? That you cumulatively keep on increasing your limit once you keep on borrowing and repaying.
Yes.
Well,
exactly. So we're looking at about 14 times.
Yes.
Yes. So it's within the realm of assuming, again, we don't know what Karisa does.
Yes.
Yes.
He's a border rider.
Yeah.
He's a border rider.
He's a border rider.
Yes.
So assuming that he's a border rider, and the fact that he's been able to access that kind of money, again, within the realms of mathematics, statistically, it is possible. But the question is it really feasible that Karisa has been able to borrow 714,000 shillings? But it is possible.
Is it not only...
Assuming if you go with a higher limit of 50,000 shillings, and given the fact that, it's not in dispute that Hustler Fund has been able to lend, is it 30 billion shillings?
No, sir.
So if it is true, then who's borrowed these 30 billion shillings?
Yes.
So then it means the entire thing is a lie. So that's why I'm saying you have to look at the whole entirety of this issue, look at the numbers that have been borrowed and the numbers that have been repaid, and the question then becomes, does it mean people have been borrowing 500 shillings and repaying 500 shillings? That's why I'm saying it is possible.
Yes.
Yes, I'm not saying it is what has actually happened, but it is possible. Yes, it is not impossible, but it is possible.
Here's how the fund runs, just before I cross over to sidelines as well. That indeed, if you're going to access this money within this short period, and that's what they're talking about, is that you have to be in a group. Because if you look at the 14 months that it's been in operation, rising as a border operator, let's say you're borrowing maybe 1,000 shillings per day, the guys who've not seen 1,000 shillings in terms of the limit increased over the entire period. Let's say within 5 months, your limit has jumped. There's also there's not a deficit. There's a 9-month deficit here before you jump to 714,000. That for those people on the platform, John, who borrowed the money on the platform, as individuals, they do know very well that you cannot access 714,000. There was an uproar in the country. In fact, that's a specific individual. That even cumulatively as an individual, for the past 14 months, especially in the cadre of a border rider, who this fund was essentially targeted to, that you can't rise to 714,000. That it is virtually impossible, mathematically and on the basis of how the Hustler Fund works.
The thing is this,
yes.
Don't call it impossible, because you see, the numbers we have. Say for example, let's use the data from M-Pesa. We know that from M-Pesa, Kenyans borrow about 2 billion every day.
That's it.
Yes, and the question then becomes, who are these people borrowing that kind of money?
That's it.
So is it possible? Yes, it is. Of course it is possible, because there are people who do business. I remember there was a snippet that was shared, I think, with Bobby Collimo,
yes.
The late Bobby Collimo, or I think it was Michael Joseph.
Yes.
And he said that when they track the data, the M-Pesa transactions, they noticed that most of the transactions take place very early in the morning. And apparently it turns out most of these people who are trading in that during those hours are usually traders.
Yes.
And what they normally do is they borrow the money, they go out and do their business during the day,
yes.
and then repay the money. So I'm saying statistically and mathematically it is possible. Remember, this money is cumulative. It is not like Karisa got the money in one bunch. He has borrowed. So what we need to know is how many times has he borrowed? Because if you look, again, like I said, 714,000 divided by 50,000, it's only about 14 times. And there are people who do business using those apps, and that is why they move a lot of money. That is why every bank is on mobile money. Why? Because there is money to be made. So it is possible. It's just that we have half the information.
Does it? So
it is possible that they embellished the facts,
yes.
But without knowing how many times Karisa has borrowed, we cannot say for a fact that it is a lie.
Salas, I'm not done with him. I'm going to come back with more facts as well, isn't it? Because you saw exactly how this particular topic became a fight within the National House. And this is, let me just read for you a line here from the Hustler Fund itself. This is what they're saying, yeah? that the Hustler Fund group loan product, we're not even looking at individuals because we do know exactly how individuals essentially rise within it. And by the way, I should remind you, John, that the president himself tried to borrow upon the launch of this fund. His limit was just 800 shillings. That he had to start from 800 shillings. I got to remind you. I got to remind you, John.
Again, Simba. Yes, so that is true. Like all the other needs, you have to build your credit profile. You do not start by borrowing 1 million. You start somewhere. You start with like a small amount and then cumulatively.
I'm going to keep on reading.
As you borrow more and you build your own credit profile, and then the banks or whoever is lending money to you gets confidence in you, in your ability to repay, then they bump that up. But if so there are people who start with a small amount of 10,000 shillings and can easily get an overdraft for 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, depending on your credit profile. Again, like I said, unfortunately, in this case of Karisa, we do not have all the facts. We do not know how many times he has borrowed, because the 714,000 is not one bunch of money that he was given.
Pretty much.
Yes. So he's borrowed throughout the lifespan of the Hustler Fund, which I think is about now 10 months, 11 months.
That's it.
So it is possible.
I'm going to come to it as well. Silas, let me just read this particular clause here. That the Hustler Fund group loan product allows groups to apply for loans ranging from 20,000 to 1 million. The interest rate is pegged at 7% per annum on reducing balance and 1.5% default rate. Now, the repayment period is 6 months from the disbursement date. Let's leave it there. I mean, I don't know whether it's right that John isn't on the Hustler Fund. I mean, had it been on it, they will give us the correct figure. Just exactly how as an individual, your limit would increase. But then, Silas, I'm asking this question, that since we're talking about this, it shows exactly what the economic policies and inventions of President RUTO were. But those are the ones that members of parliament are heavily questioning on. Do you think it was a PR blunder for him to come in and say that there's a border operator in this country who's already got 714,000 out of the Hustler narrative, out of the Hustler Fund, in 10 months of borrowing, without essentially giving us more details of how he himself got this limit? Because Kenyans said, no, a lie. Something that majority of Kenyans now have associated the president with.
Well, Simba, this is a very pertinent matter, being that it is touching on the personality of the president himself, coming up to speak on behalf of his government and on behalf of the country to the people. You want to call it a PR blunder. I am persuaded or inclined to agree with you on this particular sentiments by the president. Simba, look at the reality on the ground. Whereas we are talking about arithmetic possibilities, there are factual impossibilities in this scenario. First of all, the president appeared to speak about his achievements at a time when the country was not ripe to listen to the president's achievements, without negating certain problems that were ongoing and were rife at the point.
Yes.
So, one of the reasons why I think the president had to bring in this particular issue was to speak to the hustlers that we think he has abandoned their cause. And now when you get back to your question, Simba, there is nobody who can borrow money in multiple sequences, knowing too well there are interests on return. There are deductions on transaction costs. So you can't tell me that in the morning, going by my friend's philosophy, a drawn philosophy of multiple borrowing and repayments to build your credit, so to say, that today I get a limit of 500 shillings I borrow it and then deducted some transaction costs, maybe doing trading. And then I will have to marshal myself up again to get the transaction costs to top up on that money and repay it plus the interest. And I am sure Hustler Fund does not increase your credit limit immediately. That as soon as I refund my first borrowing, I get an extended credit limit. No, you have to build this profile over time. So that means you might work on your 500 limit for a few more times before it is pushed maybe to 800. Now, looking at this thing factually, we want Karisa to present his transaction statements.
That's it. That's it.
We want the president to give us the data. We are in the world of technology. I mean, Simba, we are talking about data. Publish it. Put it on TV. Let us see. Can Karisa allow us into his data privacy so that we can be able to check on the transactions and see whether this 714 is actually factual or the president was trying to appease certain members of the society who have been calling him out for abandoning the hustlers. I think that was the purpose. And our president has a record. His record is very rich of lying and still drinking tea with you. Can lie to you point blank there on the table and deceive you there and call for a cup of tea and greet you as if nothing happened. So me, I can't buy President Ruto's PR stunt, man. That was a serious blunder.
Does it?
You need to be properly advised.
Does it? Callistus, I'm going to continue. I'm going back on Callistus, on John on that as well. I'm going to read again. And this is back from December last year. I'm going to read. Also saying that majority of Kenyans were asking why their limits on the Hustler Fund are not increasing, right? They're saying, now I'm going to read in summary the story that Lookuptv actually published on their website. We had a presser back then. They said the CS, who essentially, Chalagui said, that the same disclosed that the highest amount lent so far was 5,000. That was at December.
10 months ago.
That was 5,000. That's the highest amount lent so far was 5,000, with the minimum being 500 shillings. Continued that at this particular point, the fund had essentially disbursed 9.5 billion. That was at December. Now I'm going to continue. So when the majority of Kenyans ask them, well, why are we not seeing our limits increase? This was a response that the Hustler Fund doesn't run entirely on its own. It is scrutinizing your credit profiles from your historical records. That's what they said. All right? They said that some of you might not see that fund increase or that limit increase because you're relying on historical records from your M-Pesa transactions, from your banks, and any other place that you might essentially borrow your money from or where your data appears. That's why that limit is not increasing. So if indeed, it was 5,000, the highest, as of December, is it possible to close our eyes and say, if Karisa essentially got a limit of 5,000 back then and stayed with it for some time, it would be on 714,000 as of now? Callistus.
It is impossible. What I can tell you is that we are seeing a lot of things happening in Kenya Kwanza government.
Yes.
It seems they have decided to lie to Kenyans about what they are doing. Because now when you look at Hustler Fund, it was not even sanctioned by the parliament. So it was just something that was created by the president himself. The technology being used there is the one who knows it. And therefore, we cannot, that is not a technology where we can say it is an accountable technology where members of public may know how they are now borrowing money and how they are paying back.
Yes.
So what I can tell you is that our parliament need to wake up, because when president comes with such a kind of things, which wasn't sanctioned by the same parliament, they are supposed to now raise up and stop that hustler fund, because hustler fund is one way of misuse of public fund, and is a scandal, is a big scandal, is a matter of all the scandals that we have in the country, because there's a lot of money they're saying they have given out there, and when you try to scrutiny or to look at the process, you may not establish how Kenyans are borrowing and how they are paying back. So the default rate of hustler fund, it stands above 80%. So is that misuse of public fund, or is it supporting anything to do with the supporting hustlers, supporting business that people are doing out there?
Yes.
I don't think that is the intention of this government.
Yes.
Hustler fund it seems the only thing that William Ruto has done to the hustlers. And if that is a scam, then he has done nothing. Because if you're telling me he promised people they will get employment opportunities, he promised to raise production, increase farm produce. Right now, everything is declining. Mm-hmm. We have declined even in our purchasing power, because people doesn't have money. And he has raised taxes. So hustler fund is the only thing that William Ruto can stand with it. And if that is a fallacy, then we have every reason to worry about his leadership.
Pretty much. John, I want us to move into the next part of this conversation again. It became a defense of what the president was saying. So let's go back to the second clip that I played this morning. That was Kimani Ichung'wah saying, well, our economy is back on track. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. He said that majority of you who belong to the other side will not want to believe it, but in reality, our economy is back on track. But let's put that figure into test. Actually, not figure. Let's talk about what he said yesterday. Now, look here. Even if today we want to subsidize everything in this country, we will not do much. And in fact, he said that if you look at what the president is doing, he's moving away from where we were, subsidizing things in this economy. That's exactly what put us where we are. But then, John, can I point you out to what they did the other day when it came to the fuel stabilization in this country? They will not sit back and say, well, let the fuel, the price for petrol go up to 229 shillings. They will not do that. They said, well, they will not let the fuel price, the price of diesel go up, the price of kerosene go up. They went back to the same thing that Kimani Ichung'wah is ironically preaching in the National House, that essentially put the government in the situation that they are now from the previous regime. But then, John, how is it that we will sit here and then say that the economy is on its way to recovery when you're doing the same thing that you are preaching against? Subsidies. I'm going to call them that because that's exactly what it is. They want us to call it a stabilization fund, but since we're students of economics, we know that once you pay somebody somewhere to sell a product at a loss, and then you're telling me I'll come and pay you, you are subsidizing that particular. It's a levy. Let's call it for what it is. Let's jump in.
Again, I will insist that some of these things, some of these conversations are not based on fact. That the numbers suggest otherwise. So that is the problem that we have as Kenyans. We want to believe, or we want to imagine that the narrative that is being woven, or the discourse that we are having, is actually true. But you look at the numbers, and from a government's perspective, assuming that the role of Kimani Ichung'wah, of course, is to defend the government, then the fact of the matter is this, that you look at the budget deficit. Budget deficit has come down to 4.4% from a high of 10%. Yes? If you look at inflation, inflation was running to In January, it was around 9.9%, just under 10%. Today, it is 6.9%,
6.9%, yeah.
which is within the limit of what the target is for the Central Bank of Kenya. It is 5% plus minus 2.5%. So it's either between the rank of 2.5% and 7.5%.
Yes.
So if you're speaking from a government perspective, the truth of the matter is that the numbers seem to suggest that that is what is happening. You look at the numbers coming out of KRA.
Yes.
KRA in September collected 170 billion, the highest. It has never been collected that kind of money. Look,
but still missed
no, we're going with the numbers.
But still missed their target, John. That's exactly
what you set targets high, and then you achieve within a certain limit.
Yes.
Yes. So you say, I'm going to collect 10 billion, knowing full well that is the target. But if you do 8 billion, you're doing okay. That's why I'm telling you, the problem is this, that when you look at the numbers, and that is what government is basically looking at, if you look at the numbers coming out of the Central Bank of Kenya and National Treasury, is that the numbers look good. And that is what basically Kimani is saying, which is very, very different from having those conversations or reality. The truth of the matter is inflation is down, prices are coming down.
Yes.
And if you look at the last example that you were talking about, oil. We know that for every liter of oil, we pay 5 shillings and 40 cents, what is called the fuel development levy. Yes, and that is where the subsidy comes from. So we actually pay for these money. It is not coming from government. What government is simply saying is, we were on this path where we were borrowing more and more every time.
Yes.
Yes, and the idea is you need to bring this borrowing down for you to stabilize yourself. And then it's just like I tell people, think of it as the way you would behave with your own personal finances. What happens when you spend more than you earn? You're going to end up in trouble. And that is what we've been doing. Under Jubilee government, as much as President RUTO, of course, we cannot exonerate him because he was the deputy president, we were running budget deficits of about 8% per year. That's how we ended up with 10 trillion shillings debt. And you remember last time I told you, Benjamin Franklin, the American founding father, tells us two things are sure in life. What and what? Taxes and death. Yes? So we have to pay taxes because we borrow this money. That is why I've always insisted that we are having the wrong conversations. That the truth of the matter is we borrow this money, but how did we spend that money? What did we do with that money? And that is the conversation we should be having. So who is responsible for those missteps? But if you were to strictly go by the numbers, the truth of the matter is that all these numbers are trending downwards.
Yes.
And that is what Kimani is saying.
That's totally fine. Silas, I'm going to come to you. That's totally fine. That when you look at some numbers that are essentially a pointer to economic stabilization, you would say yes, but within the confines of that. And they seem to accept. When you listen to Kimani John, he said, well, the country is now pulling from what was tough economic periods all the way in 2020, 21, 2022. We're still feeling the effects of the Russia-Ukraine war. That's fine. Some numbers were bound to come down because we did know exactly what that inflation number we're getting from. Well, it was just imported inflation. At some point, things had to get better. Fine, and we give that to you. But let me point you out to this. When it comes to what the song was during that campaign period and what the song was when they came into parliament. Now, I'm going to read you a figure here that is essentially from the control of national budget. We're seeing exactly how we're borrowing money into this country. Now, RUTO's administration, in the first 6 months in office, all right, borrowed 17.4 billion shillings more than the same man that they're blaming Uhuru Kenyatta in his first 6 months in office. And they're saying, to date, if you look at the first 1 year in office for President Dr. William Ruto, he is borrowing more than Uhuru Kenyatta borrowed in his first 1 year. And they're saying, well, it's going to continue. It looks like it's going to continue, all right? If that continues, then your promise of stabilizing the economy by not borrowing was essentially a downright lie. Because, like you're saying, absolute figures do not lie, John.
Yes.
So why can then Kimani Ichung'wah start in parliament and say, but you see, on the basis of borrowing, we are going to borrow more than our predecessors. And they're saying that, just hold on, John, and they're saying that the only reason as to why we're in this problem is because the previous regime borrowed a lot of money. But you are borrowing more than them. Could you explain that to Kenyans this morning?
To pay back the money that was borrowed.
But they said we're going to stop. Look, no, John, hold on. They said they're going to stop borrowing. They're going to stop.
You can't.
They're going to stop borrowing. John, hold on. Just hold on.
Yeah.
They say they're going to stop borrowing and force the country to live within its means. But they're not doing that, John.
That's why I've said, if you look at the budget deficit, has come down to 4.4%. We were running 10% deficit.
And I
so this is what happens.
Yes.
Okay. Look. Yes. You spend money, but there's two columns in a budget, isn't it? There's the income and the expenditure.
Yes.
Yes. So the idea is you keep your spending below your expenditure. You keep your spending below your income.
Yes.
Or within the income. Yes. So anytime you spend more than you earn, then that money has to come from somewhere, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We go step by step.
Does it?
Yes. So it has to come from somewhere.
Yes.
And this is where the budget deficit is coming from, and this is where the borrowing, those numbers, the 10 trillion shillings, is not a number that has been plucked off the clouds. Yes, it is a real number, and this is what is happening. The fact of the matter is we've been spending consistently over the last 10 years, spending more than we earn, and that money has to be borrowed.
Yes.
But we know that when you borrow money, you have to pay back. Yes? So we find ourselves in a situation where I've seen statistics from National Treasury that the redemptions this year is 1 trillion shillings. Yes? In 2023, we're going to spend, as Kenya, we're going to spend 1 trillion shillings of our taxes or hard-earned money to pay debt. Where did this debt come from? It is debt that has been accumulated in previous years. So whichever way we want to we swing and dance, the truth of the matter is we have to pay that money.
John, I'm not
when you borrow money, you have to pay back.
I'm not putting you on the spot this morning, by the way. I'm essentially just telling you that for every other argument that you have, there's a counter-argument. Now, Silas, this is the counter-argument. And this is what they promised. And you could see that. And I want to remind John exactly what Dr. President William RUTO said during his inauguration. He said, famous quote, tulipe ushuru, tujitegemee. That I do not think it's okay for us to continue borrowing. Let's find ways within our country for us to pay this money back. Now, gentlemen, I'm going to read for you the figures that we're talking about this morning. If you look at the announcements that are coming from majority of the ministries in the country today, it's as if, somebody said yesterday, it's as if they're in a competition to show us who can raise more money in their ministries. Services that we'll previously get for free, now we're paying for. An ID that is essentially a service. By the way, it is a service. If you look at how it's defined in the Constitution, that is a service that your government is supposed to give you. A service out of the taxes that you're paying. We're paying for it now. Now, the most controversial one is even the land rates in this country. By the majority of Kenyans close their eyes to that when they're rioting about how much money they're going to pay for their services. If you look at that controversial bill that is suggesting how we're going to pay for the land rates now, that's when they're going to get money from. Then how is it, Silas, that a man comes into power and says, well, we're going to collect to repay our debt? So Kenyans are feeling the pinch of this collection. And you can see that. Even John is in agreement that for the very first time, there's a conversation about tax and how much we're paying in this country. But then on the sidelines of these heavy collections, which was essentially supposed to go and pay this debt, is what we're seeing a government borrow more than the previous regime that was not collecting this much tax from its Kenyan citizens. Is that not where the lie comes from? That yes, we're collecting these taxes, but then why borrow more? Rely on these taxes. Even what John is saying, they're collecting more on their taxes. So if you're collecting more, why can't you stop borrowing more, Silas?
Simba, I do not want to put my co-panelist John on the spot as the only government advocate around. However, you see, our discussion this morning is the famous Kenyan's rhetoric. Choices have consequences. And then you carry the burden of your choices. I saw yesterday there was a meeting between the Azimio leader, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, and a group of religious leaders,
Yes.
together with his team here in Westlands.
Yes.
And there's one pastor who really urged him to speak on behalf of everybody, including the church. And then there's one man that I admire so much. By the way, I really admire Edwin Sifuna a lot.
Yes.
He said that the best way for somebody to speak for the country is when the country makes the right choices at the ballot. You don't make wrong choices and then you come and say, please speak up. You have been quiet for 6 months. Back to your question, Simba. You see, the president is always a man on campaign. He has painted to us his politicking mechanisms and modes. When he was told, hey, please, let's work.
Yes.
Stop campaigning. There will be a time for campaign.
Yes.
You saw him moving around, doing campaigns. Our president is actually on a campaign mode as we speak. You may not see it expressly, but it is impliedly.
Yes.
And what does campaign entail? Campaign entail marshalling financial resources.
Yes.
If you go on YouTube, you'll find some of my statements on campaign financing. And the president, one of the way he has to do that, remember we have a report so far where Kenya is paying for even non-borrowed loans, loans that cannot be accounted for. But the records are there that Kenya has already paid for
this loan.
for these loans.
Yeah.
You can only be sure, Simba, that for every shilling borrowed, there is a private shilling owned.
Yes.
Somebody, I mean, the government borrows, it enters into some people's pockets. Back to John, is the man on the firing line this morning.
No, that's the joke. But
exactly.
But then the number.
You see, it was my time.
That's fine.
It was my time. My colleague is reminding us of our behind, the periods we've left. And it reminds me on the NTV headline. Oh, there's a roof leakage? Blame it on the Jubilee government.
That's it. Go back. Blame that. That's it.
So that really caught my attention.
Yeah.
Oh, leakage? Blame it on the Jubilee government. so
Also, I wanted to say, where have these come blame them? Let's come and help us.
So you see, when I tell you, Simba, that I am increasing your pain so that I decrease your future pain by not borrowing more, that means your pain of these taxes can somewhat end in some unprecedented near future.
Does it?
When we have repaid all the loans that we have. That is the promise we were given. But against all this, we see the president actually borrowing more than the predecessors borrowed. Meaning, piling up more loans on the pains we have for which our taxes are increasing. What does that mean? More and more taxes are going to be piled on us in the near future. Remember the uproar? Where there was an assault on the Citizenship Act, particularly Section 14.
Yes.
Where the children of Kenyans born abroad in the previous gazettement were supposed to pay 1.2 million to be citizens of the country. Imagine 1.2 million. They say 200,000 for processing, 1 million for acquiring the document.
That's it.
In the new publication, I saw it was reduced to 100K. So an assault on our laws.
That's it.
It brings you, Simba. It brings the country to the realization of what we are actually into.
Yes.
All the goodies that are being painted on us are to keep us moving and not to exercise our constitutional right of picketing,
Yes.
demonstrating against high taxes, against unachievable ambitions of a government without public participation and consultation of the sovereigns.
Yes.
Remember, you and I, Simba, are the sovereigns. Before anything is done, I need to be consulted. Is it really worthwhile?
Yes.
Is it worthy of this approach? Simba, as I finish, because you can hear my colleague really supporting me here strongly, meaning it's burning with fire. but before I finish, Simba,
Yes.
the president is actually on a PR stunt. Damage control, and because we have loved his lies,
Yes.
and sometimes even made memes of his lies, we are actually adding more firewood onto the fire by encouraging the president to continue lying to us. Because nobody has stood up to call him to account for his lies.
Okay.
The issues of the stadium went like that. The previous government, that one we can't blame the Jubilee government, because the Jubilee government who made those promises are actually in the UDA government. They just went like that. Now this Garissa issue is going to go like that. So if we have a president that cannot be held to account, we have no country, as the Kenyans say, Simba. We have no country.
Just to clear on this particular issue for stabilizing the economy and making sure that every other money that comes into the country is well spent and we're borrowing less and less. I want to read for you a story again that we ran at Lookuptv right here, and it was on September, on the 15th. Well, there was a motion that was tabled in the National House, which we do know is majority UDA, right? And this motion was essentially geared towards allowing the Senate to audit our debt, know where this money is coming from, how much we're spending, how much we are paying, and the controllers of this money. Good. Now I'm going to read for you an excerpt here on at the point where they were shooting down that bill. Now they say the amendments to the bill, as proposed by the Senate, will be detrimental, especially to our work as the National Assembly. This would curtail the function of the House in the consideration of the national government's budget when submitted. Continued, this is solely under the purview of the National Assembly. And I will tell you who stated this. It is him, Kimani Ichung'wah. I will stop there. Now, just Monday, Margaret Nyakango comes in, all right, and says, good, you see all these loans that we're paying, I can't see where 2 billion is. I can trace it.
Elisha, do you remember Mobutu Sese Seko?
Does it?
And then Idi Amin of Uganda.
Does it?
I think my president is not doing better than them. Because when you look at...
John, you know the story, isn't it? You know the story. You know the story of Mobutu Sese Seko, yes, on exactly how we borrow money. It comes into the country and it just goes into his pocket. It will never be used for anything. Like, you will never know how that money came in. So you'll be told the government has this particular debt, and you will never know exactly how that money came in, what it did, and nobody will trace it.
So the
that would happen. That would happen.
But 2 billion, if you can't see what 2 billion is, then that's a perfect example, is it not?
Now we are discussing about how to improve our economy.
That's it.
And this government has blamed inflation, high national debt, as the main causes of how our economy is doing. If I can explain to you what inflation means, is a decrease in protection in relation to supply of money.
Does it?
So if William Ruto's regime, they are increasing taxes, then it means they are reducing what we call the demand of goods and the supply of money in the economy. Therefore, what we are supposed to do, if a country wants to increase its production, we must know how we can increase exports.
Yes.
Because export is what gives us exchange rate. If we can stabilize our exchange rate, then we'll be able to do well in economy. Now, the problem we are facing in the country, problem number one is William Ruto. Problem number two is the system of government. Our system of government was formed with the intention to misuse public funds. And I want to give you an example. Like just on Monday, they say they're moving around to plant trees. They used close to 200 millions to plant less than 500 trees. Is that not misuse of public funds? It's a misuse of public funds. They are using a lot of money to launch projects rather than putting money in the projects. So that is also a way of misuse of public funds. When you look at counties now,
yes,
we have got 47 counties. Is it necessary for us to have 47 counties? Given that we have 47 speakers, we have 47 majority leaders, we have 47 minority leaders, women, 47. Then we have got like close to 2,500 MCS. So as we complain about William Ruto, we also need to, I think next time we need to bring this topic on, because we need to start that conversation to know, is it necessary for us to have all these politicians we are having? We have got close to 500 members of National Assembly. I don't know how many of them to access microphone in their term of 5 years. So we have to know where the rain started beating us. And when Uhuru Kenyatta formed his government,
yes,
he went and borrowed money, Eurobond. And that money came here in the country. He paid salaries, close to 240 billion. He paid salary. He did not use even a coin to do anything that we can say is developmental. So we also need to know, as William Ruto is running up on town,
yes,
he's not a good leader we can say we are enjoying. He's actually an example of the worst dictators we have ever had since independence in our country. So we are starting another conversation. As from Linda Jamii,
yes,
we are planned for national marathon, peace marathon actually. It will be held in town at KICC. We shall close all those roads around town on 16th of December. And I'm also inviting the president to come, because president and the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, they need to come, because we need to start a new conversation, a peaceful way of approaching things.
Does it?
Because whereas we are complaining about William Ruto's leadership,
yes,
there are also basics that we need to do as people.
Yes.
Because if you ask me, we just need to have like 8 counties with less than 700 MCS. We just need like 150 members of parliament. We don't need Senate. Senate is just like a group of elders or a group of people meets to make charts and go home. They have never done anything since they were since that way the Senate were formed.
Yes.
It has never added or helped us with anything. So we need to deal with the corruption by managing our system of governance. Number 3, why is William Ruto giving a cabinet secretary room to use like close to 10 vehicles, then at the same time they are using choppers on daily basis? If he's a great leader, he ought to have cut down all the expenditures of government by reducing the number of cars, by minimizing usage of choppers
Yes.
of these government officials in every day, because they are using choppers every day. If you go to Wilson Airport every weekend, you don't see any choppers there. They are being used by cabinet secretaries and people who are in the government.
Yes.
So we cannot be complaining every time. We are borrowing to pay salary. We are borrowing to pay recurrent expenditure, which is manipulated.
Yes.
For some people to misuse public money.
That's it.
Yeah.
John, I'm crossing over to you as well as we advance that conversation of exactly where the economy is. And I'm going to read for you a very interesting quote from my friend Rufus Kamau this morning. Thank you very much for watching. He says this: in psychology, there is a theory that is known as door in the face technique. Okay? That when a government wants to hike the price of a service or product, it will often announce a big scary number that they know very well is going to get rejected. All right? Now, after the public outcry, it settles with a lesser number.
Yep.
The true intended number that it wanted in the first place. Now,
Was a
it continues.
Yes.
In so doing, the proposed number seems like a reasonable deal,
Yeah.
and people largely accept it.
Yeah.
This is basically the government using the anchoring bias against its citizens. Let's talk about the state of the economy in its entirety then, John. If indeed Kimani Ichung'wah is going to stand in and say, we've stabilized the economy, everything is fine, all right, guys, we're good. Why this tricks then? Why do you need Kenyans to pay for services? Why is every other ministry now coming out to announce an increase in the services that Kenyans would essentially get for free? Somebody also asked me a question, John. Let's say that you're running a business. It's true that you'll be running a business, and we do know a million businesses outside here. That if you're going to increase the price of that particular product, there's something that has to inform the increase in the price.
Yep.
And there's a particular percentage in businesses allowed. Nobody has ever gone in and increased a service or a product by 5,000%. By the way, some of the computations that we have, there's a service that it goes up by 7,000%. That in business terms, that is useless, you're crazy, you need to close down.
Yep.
So while we're sitting here saying that the economy is doing fine, John, but in reality, we are seeing this sort of things in the economy. Number two, at what point, John, is anybody who speaks or trying to make sense for this government going to say, maybe now it's a little bit too late for us to keep on saying, oh, the Jubilee government did this. You go talk to them. Oh, you know, that government borrowed so much money. Is what we're trying to correct it. At what point are they just going to say, this is where we are, without mentioning Uhuru Kenyatta and the Jubilee government and Raila Amolo Odinga, and say, we are working on it. This is the progress that we're making. At what point are we as Kenyans supposed to demand, hey, look here, it is your economy now. It is your government now. Please do not tell us about Uhuru Kenyatta. It doesn't make sense.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense.
True, definitely. I like what Carissa is saying, and I think we've had this discussion previously about the issue of the conversation should be, how did we find ourselves in this place?
Yes.
So, coming back to Rufus and what you've been saying is, I totally agree with him that you look at some of these conversations and you remember the issue of oil and the possibility that Chirchir said we could go up to 300 shillings. It was all part of these big sort of charade that is supposed to sort of acclimatize as to what is going to happen, so that by the time we get to that point and you're saying, congratulations to government. Actually, I've seen a few people saying, actually,
it's supposed to be 300.
Well. Yes,
it was supposed to be a 300. It's a 217,
yes,
guys.
People are celebrating, so they've held it at that 217. So it is very, very possible. But the truth of the matter is, as much as I agree with what Carissa is saying, the characterization of the president as being as bad as Mobutu Sese Seko level. I think that is hyperbolic. That's an exaggeration. Yes, he could have his faults, but going as far as saying that the president is on the league of Mobutu Sese Seko and all those African.
John, how different is it?
Wait.
How different is it?
Because you see, these guys were actually stealing money and stashing it away in Switzerland.
But why is
but
it?
There is no. Is there evidence that RUTO has stuffed money in Switzerland?
But the controller budget is saying, I don't know where it is.
Exactly. That's why I'm coming to that point. So this is what is happening. Again, I know many people when they're tuning in, especially with Akio coming at me, they might think I'm Isaac Mwaura. I'm not government spokesman. What I'm saying is, yes, I'm a scientist. I follow the numbers. Yes, we're trying to have a factual conversation based on numbers.
But does 2 billion scare you? When we lose 2 billion as a
that's
government.
why we're coming to that. Let me explain this.
Yes.
And I've said this on this show before.
Yes.
That if you look at the debt that we have, and that is the context that we must be cognizant of as Kenyans, whether we like it or not, whether we go up or down, the truth of the matter is that is the albatross around our necks. Okay, this is what happened.
Yes.
By the time President Moi was retiring in 2002, he left a public debt of 600 billion shillings. Yes? And then Kibaki came in 2002.
Yes.
Kibaki bumped up that to 1.8. So basically Kibaki accumulated 1.2 plus the 600. And then Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and the Jubilee government, of course, including RUTO as his deputy, came in 2013 and bumped up that number from under 2 trillion shillings all the way to the current 10 trillion shillings. Yes? And you speak to anybody who understands finance and numbers, that is a scary number. Yes? And that is the reality that we are facing, that we have debts that have accumulated to 10 trillion shillings, and we need to pay it back. That is why taxes have to be, money has to be collected from everybody, from any nook and cranny, behind the sofas, everywhere. We have to look for money from everywhere to pay that debt. Now, the part I'm agreeing with Carissa is now we should be having a conversation about how we found ourselves here. Nyakango, the COB, raises a very, very important issue that has always been there. That when you look at some of these issues, so you go and negotiate a loan, say, with the government of Italy, yes? You pay commitment fees, you pay other amounts of money, yes? But somehow down the line, whatever project that you are borrowing that money for has not been properly developed, yes? But you've already paid, remember these fees, you're paying them up front. Yes? And that is what exactly COB is talking about. That we have made these commitments, but unfortunately we've not got to where we've accessed those monies for whatever reason. Yes? Including low absorption rates. One of the big things that is happening in the county governments is absorption of development funds.
Yes.
So once we realize that and recognize that there is this money that we have to pay back, that is why I've always been of the opinion that we need to now have a conversation around ideas like odious debt. So some of this money, you remember the big conversation in 2015 with Eurobond 1, which is due next year, and there were conversations around where that money went, that it is even feasible or possible that that money never got to Kenya. And that is the conversation we should be having. I tell people, some of these infrastructure developments that we have, we need to have a conversation as to how we ended up with a kilometer of road costing 1 billion shillings. You look at the Nairobi Expressway, 4 billion shillings a kilometer. A kilometer from, you see the Haile Selassie roundabout to the other roundabout around the Grand Regency there. That's 4 billion. You move to Kempinski, another 4 billion. How? How did we end up there? That is the conversation we should be having. Now, with the money, because we cannot be let off not paying our debts. We know that it is the first charge on the consolidated fund services. It's a sovereign debt. You have to pay regardless of who is the president, regardless of who will be the president in the future. The first thing you have to do is to pay public debt, whether you like it or not. And now, these conversations we are having are stemming from that. That the truth of the matter, money has to be found to pay for these things. We spent that money. Nobody questioned how we are doing Outer Ring Road at 1 billion a kilometer. You use that road, it's the most dangerous road in Africa today, actually in the world. Yes?
Yeah.
How did we end up paying $1 billion shillings? It traverses through the most populated, highly densely populated areas of Nairobi. And yet, it is not motorable. It is not user-friendly.
Yes.
People get killed on that road.
John, are you also
but we are paying $1 billion shillings per kilometer. That is the conversation we should be having. And then find the guy who signed off and hang that guy.
Well, like anybody person will get you that's a sober conversation to have. Yep. But are you then, just take 45 seconds to respond to this.
Yep.
You did see how fired up the president and the government was when they came up with the finance bill, which is now an Act 2023. The president going ahead and saying, well, I want to see which member of parliament is that who's going to come in and deny Kenyans a chance to step in and and get their money and get their right. Are you also then, shouldn't you be concerned that when a motion is tabled in parliament to audit our debt, know which project it is, who signed on it, how much is using that?
I'm with it 100%.
That is not vehemently going and telling members of parliament, I want to see
I'm with that 100%.
But he hasn't done it.
100%. I actually agree. If the president can tell us as Kenyans that we're going to look for those guys who signed off some of these projects and we're going to deal with them, I'm all behind
But he hasn't done it then, John. That's the question, he hasn't done it.
Because we're not having that conversation. We're having conversations about Karisa and 714 billion shillings.
The majority, Kimani Ichung'wah is the aide of the president, is the aide of the president party, is the leader of majority. Yes. You would like to think the president speaks to him.
Yep.
He refused. John, he refused.
Remember,
not
again,
once, twice.
We have to be very, very careful about how we have these conversations. Remember, there is the issue of the tough war. There is a tough war. Let me just say this before we take a break. There is a tough war between the Senate, and that has always been there, the Senate and the National Assembly. So the Senate wants to do that function, and basically what Kimani is doing is defending his staff. He's saying this is under the ambit of the National Assembly.
That's it.
Yes, but it is a tough war. Let's not confuse tough wars with what the facts are.
Once we come back sidelines, then the question is going to be essentially for a man who's saying we're going to borrow less, we're going to spend less, we're going to account for our debt. No, Kenyan is going to lose their money. In fact, that was he said. You would like to think that when the leader of majority in the National House says no to the Senate auditing debt, he will defend that motion like he did to the Finance Act 2023 that is taxing Kenyans like it is now. Once we come back, also, top of the issues that we're going to talk about once we come back, you see Kabwire Mwangaza, she got exonerated. Guess what? There's a motion already. 2 days after, she's got to go back to the Senate again if the members of the County Assembly for Meru vote to impeach her again. What's going on? Once we come back right here on The Morning Drift.
Halo, Wamwambao mpo? Nakwambia kama hampo, tusogelee kidogo. Leo ninaye mshindi wa shilingi 1500, yani maanake nusu milioni. Wasikiaje?
Nasikia raha.
Raha iongeze, nielezee raha kivipi?
Naona raha kupata hiyo nini pesa.
Kwa hivyo umecheza loto kwa muda gani hivi sasa?
Siwezi ngasema nilicheza kama miezi mingapi, lakini nilicheza tu. Nilikuwa sifi moyo. Mimi nacheza, naona wenzangu wengineo wanasema wamewini. Lakini nikasema mimi nitaendelea kucheza sifi moyo.
Sasa umesema unaenda pale nyumbani kujiimarisha. Unaenda kujiimarisha kivipi?
Naenda kujiimarisha, nataka nikafungue biashara. Alafu pia nitanunua TV. Alafu nijiendeleze kujenga nyumba yetu, maana nyumba yetu iko vibaya. Alafu pia kuna wadogo zangu ambao hawajasoma wakamaliza, niwalipie school fees. Alafu niwaambie wale majirani wacheze Luto.
Over 18s only. Gaming can be addictive. Play responsibly. This message has been approved by the BCLB.
Changamka, cheza Loto.
Karibu mtazamaji kwenye kipindi cha jamii na itikadi.
Kaeni kitako, tuna mengi.
Mapenzi yanapoanza watu huitana bebi na majina mengine matamu, lakini baadaye penzi linapogeuka na kuwa shubiri,
mtu anafikia kwenda kumtafuta mke mwingine.
Itakuwaje?
Yule wa kwake nyumbani labda hajamridhisha.
Ni sawa ama vipi Maliki?
Dadangu, wanaume ni kama maembe.
Huyu ni mwanamume atakuja abadiliki.
Mwanaume mwenye wanawake wengi hata katika uchumba, kwenye ndoa ataendelea. Mtu na tabia yake hawachi. Ile umbo la kike likishaanza, kila kitu kishaanza kuwa mahali pake.
Ningependa kukuona.
Sijaenda mahali ambapo mimi nilisikia mtu ati huyu alikuwa shujaa, alikufa katika mstari wa mbele wa ndoa. Sijawahi sikia mimi.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na manjoro. Kumbuka, hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
Hi, and welcome to Tujenge Home. Your #1 show when it comes to all things architecture, real estate, property development, interior design. You get it right here on Tujenge Home. When the food is ready.
You want to serve them?
Dinner is served. Let's go. Let's go.
One to you Kenyans who hope that the current high cost of living will be solved soon. Your patience may have to wait a little longer. A government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura on Wednesday called on Kenyans to be patient for at least 2 more years to allow the government to attend to the issue.
Ni uchungu na tunakubali kwamba imefanya serikali pengine ikaongeza kodi hapa kidogo tu, kwa sababu ni aidha wewe ujitafutie hela zako ama uchukue za mwingine ambaye ameweza kuziweka akiba, alafu utalipa kwa riba ya juu zaidi. Kwa hiyo ni jambo ambalo tunafaa kulivumilia, na tunajua kwamba si wakati ambao ni rahisi sana kwa Wakenya. ndugu zangu wa Kenya wenzangu, mimi kama msemaji wa serikali nasema kwamba tunajua kwamba gharama ya maisha imeweza kuongezeka, that we don't sink further. It would have been much worse. So I really want to call upon Kenyans to vumilie so that we really stabilize things in the next 2 years or so, 1 to 2 years. We for sure will start seeing changes.
Mwaura widely and lengthily defended the 39 visits in less than 1 year by the statesman Dr. William Ruto, stressing that they have so far been accompanied by goodies and benefits to the country.
Hususan safari za Mheshimiwa Rais na manufaa ambao yamejitokeza. Kuna hela nyingi tu ambazo zimeweza kupatikana katika nyanja mbalimbali za miundo msingi. Pia tumepata soko mpya katika nchi tofauti, na tunaangalia pia mambo ya kawi na vile ambavyo serikali itaweza kupata ufadhili wa kuweza kutusaidia sisi kama Wakenya. Na pia ajira, kwa mfano kama kule Saudi Arabia utakuta kwamba watu wanakwenda kule Saudia, kuna kazi zaidi ya 1350.
Referring to the tree planting activity which was led by the Kenya Kwanza cabinet on Monday across different parts of the country, Mwaura revealed that the process was a great success after the government planted more than 150 million trees as it intends to plant more than 15 billion trees in 10 years of William Samoei Ruto's reign.
Na tunashukuru vile ambavyo watu wa Kenya wamejitolea sana kuingia katika huu mradi ama mwito wa kupanda miti. Ni wajibu wetu kupanda miti. Kupanda miti ni wajibu wetu. Na niseme kwamba Kenya inaongoza katika mdahalo wote huu wa tabia nchi.
Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv.
That is your new government spokesperson then, telling exactly where we are. A lot of notes, Silas, and I'm gonna be very brief as I lay this question to you. Is not so sure of when things are gonna get better. That's the analysis. Is that, well, just give us some time. Maybe in 2 years, or actually in 2 or 3 years, then comes back to 2 years. Things are gonna get better. So there's a timeline now that we gotta wait for 2 years officially now. I mean, he's speaking for the government, isn't it? So it's 2 years. Silas. Okay. He goes on to say, I know majority of these trips that the president has been taking have been quite important, isn't it? So yesterday, we drew up a communique from the Saudi government, and that's the Saudi Fund for Development, that signed 14 agreements and MOUs to support 12 African countries. Guess who was there recently? Our president. When we look at, let's scrutinize whether Kenya is there. It's not there. Kenya is not there. We looked at it. It's completely not there. And this narrative for these jobs that he's talking about, then you start to question it. Even it's proper for us to start questioning the president getting out of the country, drumming up support for the economy when it comes back with almost nothing. My question is this: is it okay for the government spokesman to come in and tell us, hold on, in 2 or 3 years, things are going to get better? Is that the right communication from a government spokesperson? Just 2 or 3 years, things are going to get better. Silas?
Simba, the spokesman for which government? The government is speaking for. So there is a phrase in the Bible that says that when you lie, you speak the language of your father.
As it?
So here we have a spokesman. a government headed by a serial liar, a perennial liar, frequent liar, everyday liar. everything he thinks about is how to dupe Kenyans. You know, he thinks that the many PhDs that Kenya have cannot be translated into accountability on him. He thinks that he can do anything and makes away with it. And of course, he has done it. We've demonstrated that he is able to make any rantic statements, and nobody will question him. I remember not any one session have I come to your station, Simba, without expressing my emotions and feelings on the Mambo Matatu thing and the way it went unchallenged. You know, if a government can do that, the spokesperson is for that government. What more do you expect? It's to lie. But again, I can say his projection might also be true politically. In this sense, we are made to pass through hell of a country in terms of our economy.
Yes.
Then somewhere in 2026, when we're almost heading to the elections, everything crumbles down like a free fall to the level where now you get unga at 60 shillings. And then you're told, hey, I have stabilized the economy. Add me 5 more years and you will be in heaven on earth.
Oh, that's the political definition, isn't it?
Yes.
In 2 to 3 years, isn't it? That's what you're saying.
Then what I'm saying. So, in 2026, you go get Matchbox at 2 shillings and 50 cents, like our forefathers did. and then by around 2027 April, unasikia some songs from some squatters, wembe ni ure ure. and then we are rushing to votes, and then you see Dr. William Ruto, PhD. Second term.
That's it.
January. Mambo ni yale yale. You people, we borrowed a lot.
That's an analogy. Analogy works, isn't it? I mean, Uhuru Kenyatta did that. You guys remember the price of unga towards the election?
We borrowed a lot. You just need to be there with us.
Yeah, give us another 2 years.
Give us another 2 years. Then we come to 2031.
That's it.
Oh, the president has been good. He's still young. We now need to tackle the constitution to give him a little more time. He's still young. There's nowhere he's going. Like a friend of mine called me, you know, I normally call him Wakili wa Prezo.
Yes, yes.
He called me and told me, Wakili, you know, our government is planning to take it 19 years.
Yes.
We take 10 here, and then we change it to a 7-year one term. And then he begins. He's the one to begin the 7 years.
That's the thing. Callistus, I want to come to you. I want to come to you with this example that I'm going to read. I mean, it's not like we've not seen it somewhere else. I want to read for you this. On April of this year, this is what Samia Hassan Suluhu did in Tanzania. She went and fired officials at the Tanzania Railways Corporation, all right, and the Tanzania Government Flight Agency, upon realizing that there was a report that was essentially tabled by equivalent of the control of budget. And then she essentially flagged just how much the cost of a plane was essentially thrown out of twice. Now, according to the control of the budget, they call it CAG, they twice rejected the tender to purchase locomotives and passenger coaches from the lowest bidder at an offer of around 263.4 million, and instead made a non-competitive purchase of $478 million. So when Samia Hassan Suluhu got wind of that report, she fired everybody completely.
Yes.
New jobs were advertised immediately, and they started a proper recruitment process. I'll give you another example so that we don't speak. There's a Zambian president called Hakainde Hichilema, right? So when he took over, I mean, the state of the economy in that country was not good. I mean, even their currency was tanking. So immediately he took over. The guys who were in charge of running his office immediately said, we're going to give you new cars and everything is going to be fine. I mean, you're the president, you deserve new cars. I mean, and also all the ministers in this country also deserve new cars. Also the budget that was tabled for new cars. Guess who said, hey, come on. Guys, you can't cry about how bad your economy is. And here we are saying, let's spend billions to import new cars that we use. So let's what we have first. Once we stabilize and we have these monies, we're essentially just going to buy these new cars. But no, now, guess what he did? That particular law, that particular tender that was supposed to buy new cars for the entire government, he didn't sign it. They went back. They were told, hey, President Mikata, you don't have money. Let's come back to this country. The most useless office in this country, and I dare say that as a journalist, is the controller of budget's office. John, you do know that. Nothing. It's useless. In fact, if she doesn't give us a report, and if she gives us that report, it is the same. Nothing happens. She would flank massive corruption, even within Treasury. John, you do know very well. Last month, actually no, last month, she said that her office from the National Treasury receives thrice the budget that she's supposed to get. All right? But did we do anything to that? Did the president even come and address that? From a man who's saying that there'll be no corruption in this government, that we're not going to lose any money. Nothing essentially happened. Which is why I'm asking this morning then, that we might look like we're critical when we ask these questions, but we've seen examples somewhere. We do know how much 3 offices spent to get new cars. The president's office, the prime cabinet secretary's office, and also the deputy president's office. 3 of them. I don't want to say the figures because some Kenyans might even start rioting this morning. Why can't the president act for once? Why can't we get specific statements from all these people? Kenyans listened. They were told, give us 100 days, the economy is going to turn around. But all we're hearing, gentlemen, is the previous government essentially put us here. But that was never narrative.
Blame.
That was never narrative at once when we're getting elected. The president stands and says, I will not condone corruption in this government. The controller of budget says, oh, we don't know where 2 billion is. Oh, the treasury is giving me 3 times my money. And I don't know where the two tranches are. I only received 1, but when I look at the documents, how much money has been budgeted in my office, it is thrice what I normally ask for. So where's the rest of it? But guess who's silent? Callistus, it is the president. That's what we're asking. Is it a complete lie of, number 1, where the economy is, number 2, where we are heading as a country in turning around the economy? That's the questions that majority of Kenyans have this morning.
Elisha, let me tell you this. If you look at the recent saga of a business lady, Anna Njeri, who was abducted because of the question of her having 17 billion to import oil. And when William Ruto started G2G deal, we didn't know that his intention was to plant cartels in the oil industry so that they will be making money for him while doing such a kind of things. Because I don't see the reason why the government should stop multinational companies to import oils from wherever they want to import from. Because we are crying for a high increment of prices every time. But we are stopping people who are trying to bring oil. I may suspect that that lady maybe she was bringing oil at a cheaper prices. And maybe she could have exposed the government on how they are trying to extort. Because recently the oil prices on international prices drops. That's why they have maintained. But it's the same as increasing, because when oil is dropping, you are not reducing anything. You are maintaining.
Yes.
When it increases for like a cent, you increase like 17 shillings.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say is that when you compare the leadership of William Ruto with that of Suluhu and the president of Zambia, or even the Paul Kagame, you realize that William Ruto is not a leader that we were yearning to have. And he's not even doing better than Salva Kiir. This is a person who look like
Yes.
primitive.
Yes.
But when you go to Sudan, they are progressive.
Yes.
They are progressive in terms of development. As here in Kenya, we are complaining.
Yes.
And I want to tell you, there is no way taxation, retrogressive tax, can be used as a means to even solve the problem we are having, like national debts. You cannot overtax people in the name of you want to repay the debts. What William Ruto ought to have done is to reduce on mega projects, then to utilize the available resources to pay national debts at the same time,
yes,
to support or to attract investors. How are we going to attract investors if we are harassing businessmen? We are harassing business people who are doing business in our country.
Yes.
The case of Anna Njoroke is one. And then there is also the Kabarasi man, the Kabarashuka man, where he was also harassed for not complying with the terms of this government. I want to tell you is that if William Ruto wanted to help this country,
yes,
what he ought to have done is to reduce taxes. And I have mentioned that they are saying now we need to be paying for taxes.
Mm-hmm.
If we are paying for services direct, then what is the reason of us having KRA? Because Kenya Revenue Authority is there to ensure that they collect money from the people,
yes,
and then they give services. And if we are paying for each and every service that we are being given by this government, then there's no need of us having KRA. Actually, how can we? That is double taxation. We already paid for passport. We already paid for the national ID. Why are they now charging again for people to pay? We are not supposed to pay even 100 shillings.
Yes.
Because that there is a budget to support the Minister of Information. And we have heard so many stories. They are saying the president is working out there to know how we can increase export. You cannot negotiate to increase your what you are selling to other countries if what you have, they are not competitive. What we produce in Kenya, are they competitive? We don't have enough avocados. The president went to China to negotiate how we can sell avocado to China. And yet, the avocados that are we are eating avocados from Tanzania because they are not enough. Nairobi consumption is too high. So before he go out there to look for market, he need to know whether we have surplus produce in our country,
yes,
or whether we have competitive items where they can say when he want to negotiate a deal, he'll be easily be given.
Does it?
He has gone to so many countries. There's nothing we can say. Gachagua said, I will give a report. What report? What is he planning to write down to come and lie to us again? Because if there is a report, if we got something from China, you just mention it. If you got something from Japan or Britain, you just mention it. You don't have to go and sit somewhere to write notes to come and lie to people.
Does it?
There's nothing we have gotten from the trips the president has had. And the president has increased his expenditure by 40%. So he accused Uhuru Kenyatta for misusing public money. And yet his expenditure is almost times 2 of that of Uhuru Kenyatta. Mm-hmm. He has increased borrowing. So that double speak doesn't show a picture of a leader.
Yes.
In fact, Kenyans are left wondering whether his 5 years term will end when they are still alive.
Yes.
Because it's like there is an orchestrated plan for this government for some people to make a lot of money, so that come election time,
yes,
they use the same money to bribe people. so that they'll now be elected in the office again.
That's it.
And that is the reason
Yes.
why I say
Yes.
he's not doing better than Amin. Even Amin did not oppress people through tax.
Carissa is saying all the right things.
Can we further that conversation? Can we further that conversation? Kashagwa, the DP, the other day,
Yes.
on the basis of these trips that the president has been taking, comes in and says, look here, guys, all these incomplete roads, they're going to be completed.
Will be completed, yes.
The president has gone out, he's been going out and he received these monies. Only that we can't tell you how much he's received.
Yep.
John, we can tell you. Because every time we tell you we received this much, you start telling us how to use it and how we are not using it correctly. But which sort of confirms whatever he's saying, that, well, you say the Kenyan people want this money, but then you come in and say, nah, it's our money. You can't tell them. John, that's...
I think the deputy president was acting James Bond there. He says, this is government secret. If I tell you, I have to kill you.
But which confirms whatever he's saying.
No, the thing is this.
If we go out and get this money and then you don't tell us exactly
Remember,
what it is.
The thing is this.
Yes.
The government is damned if it does and damned if it doesn't. Whichever way we look at it, because the truth of the matter is another fact that people are suffering. Yes, life is becoming difficult every day. Yes, and that is the fact.
Yes,
that whether we want to bury our heads in the sand and try and assume or imagine that problem does not exist is the truth.
Yes.
For me, what I would want to see is less of the president. I wish the president could disappear for like a month or 3 months. Let him just be in State House or Harambee House, yes, doing phone calls and doing follow-ups and, calling up Saudi Arabia and saying, you know what, you said you're going to give my youth 100,000 of them jobs. Umefikisha wapi? GlaxoSmithKline, you said you're going to build a factory to do COVID vaccines.
Yes.
Muko wapi? What is the problem?
Yes.
Yes. Let us now see the president actually doing the actual work, because at the end of the day, the job of the CEO is to market the company, to look for markets for his products. Yes, and the president, we cannot fault him for doing that. That is what his job is. Even here, your CEO is not sitting in the corner office there doing nothing. I'm very sure he's moving around the country looking for business. Yes, and that is the job of the president. That he has to go out there and look for business. And that, we cannot fault him for that. What we can do is we insist that now, after these 39 trips, we need to see some fruits. So get down to Harambee Avenue and start doing the follow-ups. Try and find out. Silas said he's going to do a factory in Nakuru.
Yes.
So talk to Silas and find out what's going on. Why haven't you, Silas, started building? That is what we want to see the president doing. Otherwise, he is damned if he does, and damned if he doesn't.
Yes. Gentlemen, if you may allow me, just for the sake of this conversation, I want us to move into another area that also touches on the economy and the cost of living for majority of Kenyans. Now, if my director then can actually post the headline on the Daily Nation this morning, which is essentially touching on the issues that we're talking about here this morning, when I actually see it, it reads, Raila move jolts bipartisan talks. And this is what it is. I'll read it briefly. So we said a report writing retreat by members of the National Dialogue Committee ended prematurely yesterday. Remember, they were doing the report. Summarize everything, isn't it? Yeah, we've been speaking for the past 2 months. Guys, let's get done and dusted. All right? Yesterday, after the opposition side now introduced fresh demand siders. All right? And this is it. They're very specific. Number 1, scrap housing levy. Number 2, reduce VAT on fuel from 16% to 8%. Number 3, slash foreign and domestic travel by 30%. Number 4, cut hospitality and office supplies budget by between 25 and 30%. Number 3, decongest prisons from 60,000 to established capacity of 32,000 to save 18 billion shillings annually. Number 7, reduce petroleum development levy to 2 shillings from the current 5 shillings and 40 cents per litre. Number 8, remove excise duty on locally published books and educational materials. So at that stage of report writing, that's when the Azimio side said, nah, we can't go with this report. So, no, we don't.
Simba.
Silence. Include this in the report.
Simba. Simba, you know, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, he knows that he's perceived to be speaking for the masses.
That's it. That's it.
And he has always threatened us. We are here with headlines. Not the first time that, I will not sign that report if the cost of living is not touched. So probably we were now ending up with a cake cutting report without the cost of living. And then he realized, no, the ground is going to slide.
Yes.
You see? You know, politics is politics. And he said, now, look, this is what I promised my people. Please include them.
I can't have this report.
but how?
you want to include in the report?
You know, you cannot
Are we supposed to ask the question? What have this gentleman been?
Where's he been?
How this entire period when they were having these conversations?
Where's he been?
Where have they been? Silence.
Where's the old man been?
Wait, the water retreat, by the way, to write this report.
No, unless Daily Nation has not told us that these demands were there initially, but are now not going to be included. But if it is an afterthought,
fresh demand.
Raila knew how. You know, Raila knew.
You're like in a funeral, eh? And you leave your plate to pass by being served, and then you come back. Hey, I needed that one. Please put for me this.
Walai.
Na ushapita. Surely.
Can you tell us the look?
Raila is a genius.
The look the government side had when they said.
Let me tell you.
No, you just throw your hands and say,
voila.
When it comes
no, Simba.
Yeah, Kalista, I'm coming.
Simba. Kalista is burning here. But Simba, you see, politics. Nyani ni wale. It is the forest that can change.
That's it.
But the monkeys are same.
You know, let me tell you the truth. You know, when it comes to politics, Raila is a heavyweight.
That's it.
That you cannot manage Raila using lies.
That's it.
And Raila knew how it will end. That is the reason why he kept on saying, unless you handle this and this, I will not accept. So the cost of living is not coming up right now. He used to say such a kind of words. And when he knew that William Ruto had ill intention, now he knew how best he will handle him. Now Kenyans will know. The reason why Azimio have refused this thing is because William Ruto has refused to address the cost of living. And he's going to win. And everybody will agree with him.
Brought in at the penultimate time.
And like this is the best time to bring it.
Yes. So
Raila
has won that war. So William Ruto, he has a lot to deal with. Because now Kenyans are looking at him. He has traveled everywhere. He has nothing to give us. Kajagwa is saying that they are going to plan and write something so that they can present for us as a report.
Yeah.
That is total lies.
But Simba, but Simba, you see, if I pass by the doors of a court, and then I say, no, he used a sling to hit me, but then I have not put them in the pleadings. How will the court handle that?
How will the court handle it?
I have not put them in writing.
So,
Kalista is telling us that Raila has been shouting. Can Kalista show us, or rather, he seems to be supporting Raila,
like in that
where Raila actually put these demands in the initial stages of negotiations.
I think we can give him that benefit of that because Raila said it clearly, and even Kalonzo Musyoka and Eugene Wamalwa, they said We are here, and our main role is to ensure that we address the cost of living. Those are some of the things they said publicly.
Yes.
So whether they discuss it in the committee, I don't know.
Before you go to him, let me hijack a little bit. Before you go to him, let me hijack.
Who was running the agenda?
Simba. You see, his statements were vague.
Yeah.
They were veiled. I remember the first time I came here, you read for us the demands from both sides.
Was it?
There was nothing touching specific like this.
This one has, isn't it? It's quite specific. They even have numbers.
Actually, yes, it's true.
It is numbered.
It's numbers.
It is numbered, man. There was nothing specific touching on the cost of living the way he is now rightly doing what? Touching on the cost of living.
On it, isn't it? John, can I indulge you on this? It was
we've had this conversation.
You've thrown the tortoise on its waters.
Guess what? I gotta tell you exactly what John kept on telling me from time to time. I'll put it to you. And Kalisa, this is what John keeps on saying. You see those bomber stocks? They were just a rope for the opposition to hang. At this point now, John, hold on.
Yeah.
I think they listened to you.
Yes, I've been vindicated. I've been vindicated.
John, somebody was listening to you.
Always
but guess what? They've got no report now.
Yeah.
They've got no report. The guys walked out.
We're going to end up in that situation. I said when we started these conversations around the issue of NADCO, National and Akiro raises a very important issue because we've seen a range of different diverse groups of people doing presentations.
Yes.
And nowhere in those presentations have we had these how many are they? 8 or 9?
It's 9 demands.
Yes.
It's 9 demands.
9 demands.
Yes.
And have actually been inserted, like Akiro is saying, at the tail end in the penultimate period when the match is about to end. Yeah? Yes. Yes. Because, look.
That is the election theft. Yes.
The thing is this, it was always going to end up somewhere here. We've always had these conversations. The truth of the matter is, the NADCO thing was serving 2 purposes. Purpose 1, for government, for Kenya Kwanza, it was keeping the opposition and Azimio off the streets. And then for the Azimio guys, it was keeping them busy, so they have a reason and to wake up and look forward to going somewhere. So you think about Jeremiah Kioni, the vice president, the former vice president, Kalonzo Musyoka, they had a job, yes? Which in other circumstances, if there was no NADCO, ask yourself, what would Jeremiah Kioni be doing on a typical day when he wakes up? Yes? So that was the purpose that these talks were serving. Yes? Now, we're in this situation.
Simba.
Simba,
you know. Simba, you know, if you'd ask me, if you'd ask my opinion on this, that was supposed to be the list of Azimio's issues,
isn't it? When they got into the talks, isn't it?
From the onset.
Yes.
Otherwise, for now, what Azimio should do is to allow the report to be written over what they have discussed.
That's it.
And then they come up and discuss this as an amendment.
Yeah.
If that is where they put Kenyans.
So that's it, though, isn't it?
I like that we were here with Akiro in this
conversation. We're talking about it.
We've always had these conversations. And the thing is this, that now we're here. We say that somehow, if you look at all these presentations, some of them, it becomes difficult to handle them. How are you even going to do it? And remember what we said, that some of these proposals touch on the Constitution, on those specific clauses on referendum. But there is no way the president is going to allow for a referendum, because we know from Kibaki's experience in 2005 that the way referendums work, they tend to be a referendum on your term rather than the substantive issues that have been put to the public. Yes? You look at David Cameron, the blunder he made in the UK in 2015, in 2016, calling for the Brexit referendum. It is something he regrets up to this day. Italy, you look at Matteo Renzi, the same thing, called a referendum, and then the way referendums are, they are very, very tricky. Because you end up, imagine in Kenya today, if we were to have a referendum today,
yes,
do you believe it's going to be about the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary? Of course not. It's going to be about the cost of living. It's going to be about jobs. It's going to be about education, and so on and so forth. And the president is going to lose. But the president is clever. He knows that.
Yes.
So there is no way there was going to be a referendum in the first term, whether we like it or not.
Yeah,
there is no circumstance under which the president is going to allow for NADCO to propose a referendum.
Just before I bring in Callistus, just take this iPad for me. I want you to look at this, all those demands that the Azimio coalition is listed there. There are 9 to be exact. That none of them really require a referendum. It's decisions that can be made tomorrow by the president if he wants to. John, if he wants to, tomorrow.
Yes, that's why I said, again, going back to what I said, I said this is a fool's errand, and the opposition have been given a rope to hang themselves, because the truth of the matter is, it's either we end up with a referendum, or we introduce policies that are going to deal with these matters, because they don't need a referendum, they don't need talks.
That's why I come in, because I don't think you've ever had John essentially express himself on the rope to hang on in this particular situation. So if I did, it's gone up to the report writing stage. Remember, they were never at the Bomas of Kenya. No, they were in a retreat to write this report. And if you remember when they were asking for time, they said, we are done and dusted, Buana. We might not even need all those days. What we are saying is give us more time so that we could sit comfortably and handle every other issue in it. Guess what? The National House gave them more time. Unanimously agreed. In fact, it was never a debate. They gave it in immediately. The motion was introduced. They voted on it. That's it. It never went even to debate. At the report writing stage, Azimio coalition is probably looked at the rope that John has always said. And John has always said, well, this is a rope for the opposition to hang, whether you like it or not. Have they seen the rope that John was talking about? Because they've already seen it, and they've said in the report writing stage, now include this. If you're not going to include it, then we have nothing to give Kenyans. And so be it. They're going to report, John. And you see, those talks, that report writing stage ended prematurely. They've got nothing. Who's becoming clever here? Is it the UDA, is it the government side, or the Azimio side?
The Azimio side, because now the intention of this government was just to keep holding Azimio. So they stopped that in a kind of a demonstration they were used to on the roads every Monday. But the truth of the matter is there were no intention to achieve the things that they were discussing in that bipartisan talk. And even if there were intention to achieve, the bipartisan committee is null and void. It is an illegal outfit or an illegal way of how we are supposed to be handling our national issues. Because the constitution is very clear, the sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. Only the people can start any conversation. But as state officers cannot sit somewhere and purport to be discussing something where they want to achieve it illegally. It actually, for myself, I did not appear for that committee, but Professor Okola, actually, who is our national chairman, appeared before that committee. And I made my personal decision not to, because I cannot appear before an constitutional body. Number two, William RUTO promised, among the things that Azimio are saying they need to be addressed, those are some of the things William RUTO promised Kenyans. So he cannot run away from such a kind of conditions which he promised us. We want to know how is he planning to reduce the cost of living? How is he planning to reduce the VAT on oil? Because now, if he says that there is a increment or a persistent increment of oil prices on international market, then he need to remove the 8% VAT which he added, because it was unnecessary. You cannot add a tax on something that you see it has a national, international effect. It has a, how can we call it? Something that has external effects, which you cannot control. So if you are adding tax on such a kind of a product, then you are also promoting what we call retrogressive tax system,
Yes.
So William Ruto need to be told he need to address the issue of tax, he need to address the issue of cost of living, and the azimio conditions are just making him look ugly before the people.
Does it?
Yes.
Salas, let's clear this conversation because there's an issue that I want us to quickly touch on before we run out of it.
Okay.
So what next? Somebody said, and I don't know whether it's true. You see how John said, you have to look at the opposition side and say, what are they going to be doing? And now that they're out of jobs. Like Jeremiah sasa mnataka nifanye nini? Nikiamka niende wapi? So give him a job at the bipartisan committee. Somebody said that these talks might go on forever because they've got less than a month now to give us that report. And remember, they're going on recess next month. If they ask for more time, that means that we're going to see the fruits of this report next year, isn't it? Is somebody engineering that, saying, well, give those guys a job? And remember, somebody's drawing 15,000 a day from just sitting. That's a full-time job. That's 1.5 million a month from that. Are we going to see this reports, this talks go on forever? Just 2 minutes before we jump into the last issue, quickly.
Simba, of course, that is a tactic we would want to see the president using to keep the opposition busy for his own benefits.
Is it the president this time around? I mean, the opposition are the ones who messed up the report writing stage.
Of course, I'm saying that is what he would want to see.
Yes.
A continued conversation with an inactive opposition to allow him carry on his businesses without interruption. However, but that is very detrimental, particularly for the opposition side, or rather the Kenyans, because I normally say the best opposition in any government are the people. There is no way, because I heard my colleague panelist here mentioning certain government officials like David Cameron having to fail a call for Brexit. And regretting it right now. But you see, every government is opposed by its own people. As soon as you are sent to power, the first opposition are the people of the country. And so, Azimio's fresh demands are actually the points that the people would want addressed. The others were actually for the political opposition. Those are the things they wanted addressed. But the things we want to see addressed are the current fresh demands. And if the bipartisan can go to January and those things be addressed, I have no problem.
That's very it. Gentlemen, I'm going to take 15 seconds reaction from you. We're stepping out of the studio. Kabira Mwangaza again is facing another impeachment motion. John, I'm going to be blunt with you. Maybe the Senate made a mistake sending her back, knowing very well the ground they were sending her back to?
Unfortunately not. I think the lawyers played her lawyers really played it well in terms of the sympathy. I'm not familiar with the sort of the nuts and bolts or the nitty-gritties of that case, because I didn't watch it. But it feels like Kawera won on the last day, isn't it?
Yes.
When there were those presentations about all those men saying all those nasty things about the woman, and of course we felt something as people who have sisters, wives, mothers, and so on and so forth. So in terms of, I think in all that conversation, we lost sight of what the facts are, which we still don't know. But unfortunately, Buri and the other guys from Meru, unfortunately, lost the case on the basis of those videos.
Salas, remember I spoke to you about this. You told me that if the MCAs were looking for marking scheme, they would have gone back to the ruling of the Senate prior to this latest impeachment drive as well. If somebody is looking for a marking scheme, now they cannot miss it. Honestly, Silas.
What I can say is that Meru County is on a stalemate. The call by a faction of the members of National Assembly, or rather the Senate, that the county should go back to the people. That is the call right now. To actually cure this menace, to cure this problem, let the county disband and return to the people. Otherwise, we're going to see an an endless back and forth between the governor and the MCS. So let the county elect new administration. Whether they come back, let them come back on a new platform.
That's right. Callistus, 1 minute, 45 seconds actually, if you can.
I think the threshold need to be met clear on how you are supposed to file a petition in Senate. They are not making sense to bring endless petitions, because Senate is not here to serve Merus. Senate is serving all the 47 counties. So I think a decision has to be made by the same Senate, whereby we cannot be rejecting your motion, then the next day you are bringing one. I think that is a joke, and I support my friend. That county will finally be disbanded. And for my last comment is that I'm just urging my president that it is now his duty to put things in order, because he need to stop traveling, he need to stop misuse of public funds, he need to reduce the cars that he has donated to state officers, because we are spending a lot of money on fuel. If he need also to propose the lower CC engine, where this member of parliament, because they operate just here in Nairobi, so there is no reason why you should give somebody like 10 cars a V8 engine. I think that is some of the things that we need him to take drastic measures, because it is ailing our economy.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Just one. Oh, it's been ascension, isn't it? I'll call them back, because we do not know how that report is going to go. By the way, that was supposed to be the major conversation today, because it was touching on the economy. But guess what? These gentlemen have been quite invaluable this morning. Take them back to the time that they joined us right here on Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. The conversation continues online. #The Morning Drift. I am Simba Kiage. Tomorrow is a good day to do this. Goodbye.